Hey everybody, Anime Abraham here, and welcome back to another video where today I'll be doing another episode of Super Saiyan Stories for you guys. This episode of Super Saiyan Stories is actually going to be a mega episode of Super Saiyan Stories. In this mega episode of Super Saiyan Stories, I'll be doing a Tell My Life special for you guys. This Tell My Life special is meant to mimic the format of videos seen in certain YouTubers in the form of a Draw My Life video. But since I cannot draw for the life of me, instead I would just tell it to you. Anyways, without any further delays, let's begin with this mega episode of Super Saiyan Stories. My name is Abraham Hernandez, and I was born on August 21st, 2002, in Park Ridge, Illinois. My baby years were excellent. I didn't receive much in terms of TV when I was a baby, unlike kids today. The only TV that I did receive, however, was the occasional episode of Sesame Street on Noggin, Nick Jr., and on PBS. Unlike the cesspool that it is kids programming like it is today, kids programming back in 2002 was excellent due to the fact that it was actually educational instead of encouraging whining and calming angry babies who just wanted the tablet every now and again. Anyway, the little TV that I did receive consisted of nothing but Sesame Street, along with 5 seconds of the occasional Dragon Ball Z episode. However, my mom was noticing that something was off, as I was not meeting developmental milestones as fast as other babies did. My mom just chalked it up to me being a late bloomer. When I wasn't listening to Cookie Monster, Elmo, and Big Bird teaching me numbers, letters, colors, and social skills, I was either listening to my mom read to me, sucking on my baby bottle as most babies do, or playing with my baby toys. However, at the age of 2, something would happen that would change my family's life as well as my life forever. Remember how I mentioned that my mom noticed that something was off? At the doctor's visit when I was 2 years old for my yearly physical, the doctor asked my mom, "Has your son ever been tested for cerebral palsy?" My mom said no to this, and the doctor instantly referred us to a specialist for disabilities and diagnosing disabilities. 2 days later, we went to the specialist and began the diagnostic tests. A few hours later, the results came back, and on September 5th, 2004, I was diagnosed with cerebral palsy. Since I was only a mild case of cerebral palsy, the disability only affected my legs. My mom and I worked tirelessly in order to cure my CP, but it was no good. Eventually, we got referred to a physical therapist, and some of the devices that the physical therapist gave me worked for better or for worse. They even got me a walker specifically designed for toddlers with the disability. Unfortunately, though, the walker was extremely uncomfortable for me, and I was always crying whenever I would get in it. My mom could feel my pain as I would constantly reel and writhe around trying to get out of the walker, and she would instantly get me out of the walker within 5 minutes of me using it, as it was extremely uncomfortable for me to use. We eventually returned the walker with the physical therapist fully understanding the situation that I was in. In response to this, she gave me my first pair of leg braces. They were these massive, fat devices that made my legs look like Michelin Man's legs. If you guys don't know who that is, you either live under a rock or have not been born in the early 2000s. Anyway, though, guys, with that being said, though, these devices were also extremely uncomfortable, and my mom returned them to her for the same reason. Anyway, though, at the age of 3, I got my first pair of actual braces for the first time. You see, the braces that my physical therapist gave me weren't actual braces. Instead, they were more like holders for your legs. I don't know how to describe them. But anyway, though, I got my first pair of braces for the first time, and they were extremely comfortable for me. My mom breathed a sigh of relief, as finally it was a device that they could not return for a reason of it being uncomfortable. Anyway, though, I was walking around with my braces fully, and I was able to walk around finally. I would walk around constantly whenever I would run errands with my mom, and she finally breathed a sigh of relief knowing that I could finally walk. At the age of 3, I finally started preschool, and I was finally able to interact with other kids besides my cousins and people my mom would force me to hang out with on playdates. Preschool was great, not only because of the fun stuff that we would do in class, but I also made friends that I can call my true friends. Additionally, 3 years old and in the middle of the preschool year is when I would finally say my first 2 words. It was a Friday afternoon in the middle of winter. It was cold and windy that day, and my first 2 words were sputtered out when my mom came to pick me up. My first 2 words were Goku and Blue. Yes, this is what I actually said as my first 2 words. I had no idea how I came up with Goku and Blue. Most likely because my dad would constantly talk about Dragon Ball Z with my mom. When I first said these words, my mom wasn't sure if she heard me right and said, "Say it again." And I said it again. She then knelt down and started to cry tears of joy. Yes, I did predict Super Saiyan Blue almost 10 years before it came out. Start paying up my royalties, Toei Animation. Please, start paying them. I'm waiting for my payment. Come on now. Anyway, at the age of 4, I started kindergarten. And it was at this age where I started to form complete sentences and conversations. Not only that, but I was also learning how to read, and albeit at a much faster pace than some of the other kids. A lot of the other kids were jealous of me, to be honest, because of my ability to read. By the time the summer of kindergarten rolled around, I was reading full-fledged picture books without any help whatsoever. During the summer break of that same year, my mom was preparing me for first grade. Every single day, she would constantly bring me more books to read and also quiz me on certain math problems and also teach me basic arithmetic. While this may not seem like fun to kids now, back in my eyes, it was fun. As for me, it was just another bonding experience with my mom and also excuse to gain some extra knowledge of the world around me, as well as prepare myself for first grade as a whole. Anyway, though, first grade was excellent largely due to the same reasons that preschool and kindergarten were fun for me. Additionally, though, first grade also got me my first instance of basic arithmetic, which I basically aced all the way through, except for the second half of the year. During the second half of the year, they were focusing on adding and subtracting double digit and triple digit problems. Unfortunately, though, my mom had neglected to prepare me for that, so I struggled all throughout the year, focusing on double digit and triple digit problems. But don't worry though, it wasn't a massive struggle as I got massive help from my teachers as a whole, and I would always see them as absolute legends because of this. During my time in the first grade, I also gained a lot of new friends as a whole, and even gained a best friend in the form of Casey. Casey was not only funny, but he was also someone you could clearly depend on. He will always help me out with getting my pencils and school supplies ready, and worked great when it came time for projects to be presented. During the first break of that same year, my TV repertoire finally got upgraded. Instead of just watching shows on Nick Jr. and Noggin, I was finally able to watch the original Nickelodeon, where I watched an army's worth of SpongeBob episodes. I thought SpongeBob was the funniest show of all time, largely due to its humor, and likely because I only watched the first 3 seasons, as those first 3 seasons were incredible, and I felt that I was spoiled watching the first 2 seasons of SpongeBob rather than the current season 6 and season 5 that were going on in my first grade year. When I wasn't watching SpongeBob, I would often read my first taste of chapter books. My first taste of chapter books came when my mom got me an entire box set of the Magic Treehouse series. I loved the series to death because of the imagination that would go into some of the stories. If you were born in the early 2000s and got to read these books, I view you as an absolute legend, or your teachers as absolute legends, or your parents as absolute legends, because they gave you the chance to read one of the best fiction book series in terms of my soon to be second grade eyes. Anyway, though, I would constantly read these books when I wasn't watching SpongeBob, which helped really improve my reading endurance drastically. By the time I hit the second grade, I was reading full-fledged chapter books that were not only Magic Treehouse, but were also literary classics. My teachers during the parent-teacher conferences mentioned this, and my mom was also super happy knowing that I was reading fully fleshed chapter books aside from the Magic Treehouse series, as my school didn't really have a lot of those. But then something magical happened. It was during the middle of my second grade year when my teacher announced that the Scholastic Book Fair would be coming to my school. Having no idea what a book fair was, I asked my mom what it was, and my mom said, "Oh, Abraham, it's such a magical place. You would love it. You get to buy books from your favorite series and even discover new ones that you've never read before." Getting curious, I was immediately excited about the Scholastic Book Fair. When it came time for the book fair to come out, I instantly bought $50 worth of books. Luckily, my mom gave me $50 to spend on those, or otherwise, I would have been $50 in debt with the school. And I did not want to be in debt with the school since $50 was a lot of money in my eyes, and even a lot of money in my parents' eyes. Now, this was back in the day when $50 could buy you a ton of stuff. Maybe you wanted to buy a super cool kid's toy and you had $50, bam, you instantly got it. But for me, I spent $50 worth of books at the Scholastic Book Fair. Once the teacher saw a fat stack of books on the table which contained the books that I bought, she gasped in awe. The book stack contained books from the Magic Treehouse series, plus some new series that I had never heard before, such as 39 Clues, and even books from my now favorite series, the Wings of Fire series. Once she saw the fat stack of books, my first grade teacher said to me, "Wow, you're going to have a lot of summer reading material." During the summer of that same year, I was introduced to the concept of the internet as well as the concept of video games due to my mom introducing me to a website called AR Reading. AR Reading was a site where you could read books, get recommendations for books, as well as do quizzes on the books that you already read. Those quizzes will transfer into points, and you can use these points in order to gain rewards such as Barnes& and Noble gift cards, among other things. Since I had plenty of books to read for the summer, I instantly began reading all of these books and did AR quizzes for all of them, which I instantly aced. By the time my summer vacation ended, I had accumulated over 3,000 AR reading points and even got enough points to earn myself a $20 Barnes& and Noble gift card. But I wanted more. I was hungry for more AR reading points. That's when my mom introduced me to the concept of the public library. Through the concept of the public library, I was able to check out as many books as I wanted. I checked out books of all kinds: fiction, non-fiction, books about historical figures, books about legends and monsters and dragons. I checked out books of all kinds, and I instantly went back, read them, and did an AR reading quiz on them, which increased my points all the way from 3,000 to over 9,000. Say it with me now, my Dragon Ball fans. It's over 9,000! Finally, the third grade rolled around. Third grade was also a blast, but math was also getting harder. I was struggling with math more than ever before, but luckily my teachers helped me out with that, and I still see my teachers as absolute legends because of this. In terms of reading, they endorsed AR reading to the fullest, which made my reading skills that much better. By the time that the third grade year ended, I had accumulated over 12,000 AR reading points. The other kids in my class were jealous because of how many points that I had. But then I explained to them that my mom introduced me to reading from an early age, and I fell in love with it ever since. When it came time for projects to be presented, I researched it to the fullest and I went all out on all my assignments. Eventually, my report cards were all A's throughout, and I eventually became a top student in my third grade class and someone that you could easily depend on if you needed help in any other subject that wasn't math. My love of reading, as well as dependability in certain subjects, continued on into my 4th and 5th grade years, with me helping out armies worth of students on their homework, as well as helping out armies worth of my classmates on their projects. My love of reading blossomed so much to the point that by the time the 5th grade summer rolled around, I had accumulated over 100,000 AR reading points. My mom had finally had enough of these points, finally accumulating, and asked me what I was planning to spend it on. I said to her that I didn't know, and she accepted that as a formal response and telling me that I had so much more AR reading to do, and I was excited to see how far I could go in terms of my reading from that point onward. During my first year of middle school, I realized just how much of an impact my love of reading had on my schoolwork, as some of my schoolwork was some of the best schoolwork my teachers had ever received. Their words, not mine. Halfway through the 6th grade year, I had to move to Texas because my grandma had bought a business there. At the end of my history class on my final day, the teacher and the entire school had a goodbye party for me. It was awesome as I got plenty of sentimental reactions from the friends that I met over the years. Additionally, though, one of my best friends, who I shall not name for privacy reasons, actually cried and hugged me. Yes, she actually cried. And I realized that I had good friends who cared about me. And we still keep in touch to this day for those of you who want to know. It was during this time too that my love of Dragon Ball was finally starting to re-blossom. I didn't mention that I was a Dragon Ball fan in the 3rd grade at this Ori, mainly because I forgot to. But anyway though, in the 3rd grade I used to be a massive fan of Dragon Ball. Almost as much of a massive fan as I am now. But anyway though, in the 3rd grade I was a massive fan of Dragon Ball. I memorized all the songs that Dragon Ball used in Japanese and in English, saw at least 2 of the dubs, that being the English and Japanese dub, saw all the series including GT, as GT was the most recent series at the time, and knew all of the lines to Goku's first ever Super Saiyan 3 transformation, as it only had 2 lines. And this is to go even further beyond, and then just a bunch of screaming. But I didn't act it out though, I just memorized the lines. Anyway though, why was my love of Dragon Ball re-blossoming again? Because it was the year that Dragon Ball Z Battle of Gods was released. I remember seeing a trailer for it on XHGUB. This is where I mentioned that we lived close to the border, as we lived in El Paso, Texas. Anyway, once I saw the trailer for Dragon Ball Z Battle of Gods, my hype for Dragon Ball exploded once again, to the point where I was even listening to the song Hero by Flow on repeat on my phone that I just got the 6th grade year as a reward for doing so good in the first half of my 6th grade year. Anyway though, with that being said, I made plenty of friends at the new Texas middle school that I went to, which was Socorro Middle School. And for some odd reason, I don't even know why, but their mascot was apparently a bulldog. And I just remember making all sorts of friends left and right at Socorro Middle School, mainly because I was extremely charismatic as well as extremely smart, thus making me a secret weapon in the classroom in terms of answering questions and writing essays. I would finish my homework the day that it was assigned, as well as doing tons of AR reading quizzes along the way, and as a result, accumulating a whole lot of points. It got to the point where I was doing so much AR reading, to the point where my English teacher asked me to actually stop reading in order to give the kids a chance to earn stickers. You see, my teacher would award us with every passing AR with a sticker. It got to the point where I had so many stickers on my side of the AR reading passing quiz chart, to the point where she even had to stack stickers on top of stickers just to prove that I was passing my AR reading quizzes. So 6th grade was an absolute blast, and this continued into my 7th grade year. When it came time for my 8th grade year, I had to move once again from El Paso, Texas to Horizon City, Texas as my grandma's business closed down by the time that my 8th grade summer rolled around, so I had to move to an entirely new school once again. But I quickly adapted and instantly grew to love each and every single one of my friends that I made over the years, and I continued to make more and more friends across this school, much more friends than I've ever had before. It got to the point where the amount of friends that I made at the school equated to a small army. In March of that same year, Sika was accepting applications for the next school year, which would be my first year of high school. I got an application, quickly filled out the parts that I could fill out. My parents signed it, and I was immediately writing my essay for the Sika interview. As Sika basically functioned as a college within a high school, as we not only could get high school credit but also college as well. I realized that this was not going to be a walk in the park, so I instantly pulled out a dictionary and thesaurus and began writing my essay for my application for Sika. Once our applications got back, the principal of the school basically announced who will be getting into Sika, and I was one of the first ones to be announced. I was excited as I didn't know what I was getting into. But boy, would I be in for an experience that would change my life forever. Finally, my freshman year of high school came. Luckily, my friend Axel from my 8th grade year was also there with me, as he got into Sika as well, and we both walked into the school together. We instantly got our schedules, and I got a schedule that had biology, algebra, and 2 English classes, along with history and art, making for 6 classes in all. The first day of school was pretty easy for me as we went around the room and introduced ourselves. However, it was during the second week of school that things started to change. I got called into the principal's office one day and instantly got scared as I knew what that meant. I was in deep, deep trouble. The principal then told me that the algebra teacher sent him a sample of my work, and as it turns out, my algebra teacher thought I actually plagiarized my work from another student. And then I told him, I know I've been struggling in algebra, but I would never think to plagiarize on another student's work. Aside from that, I developed a very, very strong crush to a girl in my business information management class, also known as computer class, which I had on Tuesdays and Thursdays when I wasn't focusing on my other 6 classes. I developed a pretty strong crush with her and eventually acted on it on Valentine's Day. Unfortunately, though, that act resulted in another trip to the principal's office, because apparently the way I acted it was inappropriate, but in reality, it was completely innocent. All I did was just give her flowers and chocolates, and that's all I did. How is that inappropriate, you may be wondering? At this point, I was convinced that the principal and many of the other staffers had it out for me, as I was constantly being put into the principal's office and being chased around like a wild pack animal to its prey. Anyway, though, I was keeping count of how many times I got sent to the principal's office for petty mistakes or for petty reasons, and as it turns out, this was my 16th time being sent to the principal's office for petty reasons. Normally, someone like me would just snap, but I was biding my time until an ARD meeting. For those of you who don't know what an ARD meeting is, I'll briefly explain it. It's a meeting where the principal, all of the administrators, and all of your teachers meet up with you in order to discuss your progress on the school year as well as your goals for the future. These meetings are specifically designed for disabled people in mind to make sure that they're keeping up with their goals and meeting up to educational standards. Unfortunately for me, though, that time would never come until the last week of school, as the principal had set up ARD meetings in secret where I wasn't invited, so I couldn't even defend myself from these false accusations and petty principal's office visits that were happening in my freshman year of high school. But that didn't stop me from keeping a list. I kept track of every single principal's office visit, as well as the reasons for these principal's office visits. By the time that the end of the school year rolled around and the last week of school finally came, I had over 60 principal's office visits built on petty reasons or on reasons that were completely innocent in nature, but were just blown way out of proportion by the principal. Anyway, though, with these 60 office visits, it caused some severe mental trauma, so much so that I developed one of the guiltiest consciences on planet Earth. Additionally, though, I was afraid of getting called out in class as I was worried that it would be another principal's office visit, even though it was just a visit from a special education counselor. At the last ARD meeting of the year, I was having a panic attack in the middle of it. When my physical therapist, as well as the other administrators, asked me a question, I was having panic attacks left and right, to the point where my physical therapist told me, "You seem obviously stressed. Just calm down and tell us what's wrong. Maybe we can help you." At that moment, I was consumed by an everlasting rage that will never be quelled as long as I shall live. Anyway, though, I began exposing the principal for all of his petty principal's office visits, including the principal's office visits for reasons that were completely innocent in nature, but were just blown way out of proportion. I was then escorted out of the room because apparently they had heard enough. I then could hear yelling from outside of the principal's office, and as I went outside the door to finish my last class of the day, I could still hear yelling coming from the principal's office. My now girlfriend of 3 months, Jessica, asked me what happened. I then tell her that I will explain later, as it is a long story. She then accepts this, and I go back to working on my drawing for art class. When I get home from school, my mom and I talk about the ARD meeting that we had. She then apologizes for believing all the false accusations that the principal, as well as the other school staff, put on me, and then officially reinstates my phone privileges as well as my laptop privileges as well. The next day was field day. Now, field day at the early college was advertised as a day where we could go outside and just be kids for once. And as a result of me not wanting to go on anything and not having the ability to do so, me and my girlfriend were just on our phones texting each other, which I do have to admit is a really lackluster way to spend field day, but I enjoyed every minute of our texting conversation. I even explained the whole story involving the ARD meeting. Throughout it, she was just laughing her butt off, which made me happy, as I always look forward to seeing her laugh and smile every time that we're together. Anyway, though, guys, before I end this story off, I just want to say please don't attack the school, as that was a long time ago and I've forgiven them long since then. That is, if you are smart enough to figure out what Sika stands for or do your research. Anyway, though, moving on to my sophomore year was drastically easier due to me being transferred back to regular high school. The homework was easier, I was less stressed, and most of all, I had most of my time to do what I love most, making YouTube videos, of course. The summer of my freshman year, I finally gained the courage to start a YouTube channel, which then became the Old Anime Abraham channel. The Old Anime Abraham channel was cringy beyond belief, and I obviously look back and just cringe at my old videos from season 1 and even early season 2, as I didn't even bother to edit my old videos from that era until I discovered KindMaster, which is what I use to edit my videos still to this very day, and I'm still constantly learning new editing techniques and more stuff like this. Anyway, my years at regular high school were drastically easier compared to the ones at the early college. I didn't even get principal's office visits and I didn't get into trouble at all. This easy streak lasted until the end of my senior year. Now, the end of my senior year was actually the easiest out of all my years due to me not having to worry about the STAR test or anything like that. For those of you who are from Texas, you perfectly know what the STAR is. But for those of you who don't, let me explain it. It's the state test that the state gives to every student in Texas to make sure that they're meeting up with education standards. And since I didn't have to worry about the STAR test, my senior year was the easiest year of my life. Additionally, though, what made it even easier was the fact that I started fully online school halfway through the senior year due to the whole situation education that we were in. And I'd like to consider my junior and senior year my golden years of high school due to how much my social life improved, as I was entering contests and entering talent shows and even starring in films that the students around the school had created. As much as I would love to talk about my college years, I still haven't finished those yet, so you can expect another version of this video updated with college years plus more information in the future. And with that being said though guys, that's gonna about do it for today's video. See you guys later, goodbye, and remember the Anime Abraham Army loves you and will always love you. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, and share this video with a friend guys. And with that being said though, peace out, and I'll catch you down the road.